we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I am just delighted to have a conversation today with Patrick Bell. He is a very interesting guy. And so let me tell you a little bit about him before we jump in. So, Patrick is a doctoral AI researcher, an AI transformation advisor who works directly with CEOs to help them turn AI into measurable business. AI, because of technology, they struggle because their leadership systems can't absorb it. As a result, companies see activity that looks like progress but fails to deliver real outcomes. Patrick, that I think really sums up something I think very important in the marketplace right now. Like, all businesses are trying to jump on the AI bandwagon, but I think they're not necessarily doing it strategically.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And it's great to be on the show with you. What a pleasure to connect. Yeah, it's something that I've been finding in my research. Well, not just research, but real life, is a lot of people are just so excited to jump into automations or something like that. And something that really struck me a couple of years ago when my friends are getting into automations and selling consulting, and I'm like that. I'm like, man, if I can learn this in 30 days, so can the world. And now I'm competing against everyone. And now it's like a race to zero. And now AI can build the automations without even your help. And I didn't want to be involved in that rat race. And so I just thought, let me take a step back, see if I can come in at a more strategic level, at least open the door to conversations like this one. And so that's why I'm doing my doctorate there. And I think it's a fascinating field. AI is just,
Yeah.
it's exciting and scary
All right.
at the same time.
Yeah. Scary and opening also an incredible amount of possibility.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Absolutely.
But before we get more into talking about all the serious stuff,
Okay.
let me ask you your random question. So, tell us how you met your wife.
All right. Well, it goes back a long way. I've been married now going on 37 years. And I was trained to be a police officer in Canada. I'm from Canada, and trained to be a police officer, and went to police college and all that, and graduated top of my class. And my friend, though, was living in Austria in Europe. When Eastern Europe was communist, it was illegal to be a Christian. And he was smuggling Bibles into Eastern Europe. And he's like, hey, Patrick, come on over and do it with me. And I'm like, you're nuts, but I'll send you some money. And there's kind of a little life truth that wherever your money goes, that's where your heart goes. And so I was sending him money, and then I'm like, hey, I want to go and do it too. Try it for a couple of years before I get into police work. And so I was actually in Eastern Europe for the revolutions of Romania and some of the more gentle revolutions through the other countries. And then on the summer team, my wife came on the summer team, and she was from California, coming from the Bay Area in California. She lived in Marin County. And I saw this California girl, and on day one, I asked her to marry me. And she's like, no, I don't even know you. I'm like, why would I marry you? So I said, let's go on a date into Vienna then. Let me take you out to dinner. And she's like, okay. And our travel schedules were a little bit opposite, but a couple of weeks later, I took her on a date into Vienna, and we hit it off instantly. And we got married a year later in Marin County, and did some school there, did some grad work in Chicago. And then we went to Japan for 12 years, and Africa and different places. And we've been around the world. We live around the world. So yeah, that's how I met my wife.
Wow. And so you just casually threw out there, oh, we live around the world. Why don't you say what that actually means for you?
Sure. After grad school, we were looking for jobs to pay off our school debt. We both weren't working through our grad school, so we had a lot of debt. And we just put out job applications out around the world to go and teach English. And 2 jobs opened up in a little city in Japan. We're like, we don't really want to go to Japan, but let's go anyway. We'll try it for a year. We ended up loving it. We stayed for 12 years. We got into English teaching, and then I became principal of the school that we were teaching in. And so I had to get into marketing and business growth, and that kind of put me on another path. And then I did my online through Regent University, Virginia. And one of my profs was from Kenya. And he's like, hey, come on over here and help us. We have a safari company. You could be our marketing director. And I have some family history in Africa. So I'm like, I would love to do that. And after 12 years in Japan, our kids were in school there and fully bilingual. But our daughter was then in fourth grade. And it wasn't the right environment for her in the school, very rote memory. And we didn't want that. So we said, let's go to Kenya. We sold our business, packed up everything, moved to Kenya, stayed a year and a half. I never got work permits. So we came back to the States for a year, up to Canada for 10 years. And then when COVID hit, we're like, we're not going to get trapped here. And my wife, the poor California girl, she's like, I'm done with snow. Anything that requires a coat, I am done. And so we thought, let's go back to Kenya and see if we can try again. And at that time, I had a virtual job. We both had virtual jobs. So we decided to take our jobs on the road, and we went to Kenya and really did well. And we built a Kenyan staff for the company that we were a part of, and just had a superb experience. But then I never got a work permit again. And then part of that was through COVID, my wife had a vaccine, and shortly after, she had a retinal detachment and lost sight in her right eye. And so she's like, before I lose my other eye, I want to do a bucket list tour. So we took our jobs on the road, and we went to Jerusalem for 5 weeks, and we just lived in the old city. And then we traveled Italy for 5 weeks all over, and Spain for a month, and Portugal for a month. And we ended up on the little island of Madeira. And we said, this is it. This is where we're going to live. So by this time, we've sold everything. We're living out of a suitcase each, suitcase carry-on and a computer. And we're very comfortable living minimally, I think that's the word. So we've been coming and going from Madeira for 3 years. We go back to Kenya a lot. We come to North America to see family, but we are going to make our home in Madeira. So yes.
That is pretty wild, right? That's a story. We're into unconventional and we've just started talking, but I love that. And I have some clients who are digital nomads, but what I think is interesting is that we think that is new, right? Just like when people got to the pandemic, and there were some people who were like, I've been remote for 10 years, right? But it felt like it was the new thing. So you were a digital nomad before that was even a thing.
I've been to 55 countries in my life. And part of my life when I was a kid was living in Africa and Zimbabwe and all that. And my parents took me through Europe and all that. So I used to a bit of traveling. And even when we lived in Canada, our boys are growing up and becoming, say it sensitively, too Canadian, too in line with everyone, just going along with the crowd, not caring about people, maybe not seeing that there's a bigger world out there. And so I'd take them on trips. I did a mission trip to the Dominican Republic. And I said, look, we're going to go and have a good time, but we're going to go and paint a school first. And we spent a week painting a school, and then we went and did 3 days on the beach, and they loved it. And it just kind of opens up their world to different perspectives. So I really believe in getting out there and traveling and seeing the world and seeing how other people live life. And it just like a racehorse has these blinders on and they just run down the track. And I think most people live very narrowly. And the more you get out, the more you go, oh, that's why people do that. And so many cultural things, like Asia is very different from Africa, like opposite in many ways. And we learn things from different cultures, and you kind of bring that into business as well. And how people do things in business is different. Like how they run an auto dealer in Japan is different than how they run an auto dealership in the US. And I'll give you one example that any listener can take this away and apply it maybe to their business, especially if they're in person. We went into the Japan dealer. I wanted to buy a new car and took my kids with me. My wife's like, get them out of the house, take them with you, go and find something. And I walk in and they hand me a menu on a laminated card, and we could order hot tea or iced tea or hot coffee, iced coffee, juice, sodas, waters, whatever we want. And here, just take whatever you like. And it was a great experience. And contrast that to when we went to buy a car in Colorado Springs, And I said, man, I really need a drink. And the salesman said, there's a drink machine over there. Go and get one. Had to go and pay. And I'm here to buy a $20,000 car. And you're sending me to a drink machine? Are you kidding me? So there's little
Yeah,
things like that. People, oh, that's how they do it there. We can apply it over here. So
sure.
staying curious, does that help?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. All right. Again, I think you've already shown us that you are really good at thinking unconventionally. But let me ask you this. So, what's one piece of conventional wisdom that you followed early on, only to realize later that it was completely wrong for you? And I want to expand on that question a little bit because one thing that I think is very interesting is that your training as a police officer or to be in the police, no judgment, I think by necessity,
Yeah,
it is rules oriented and rules based and procedure oriented, right? It's very rigid about how you do things, right?
sure.
And there must have been something about that appealed to you, right?
Yeah, sense of justice for me.
Ah,
I had a strong sense of justice. I still do in some ways. I don't really think about it that much anymore. But there was also adventure. Police, we get to hold a gun and whatever. Was it 19-year-old? It was a bigger deal than it is now. But yeah, and so gone from a very structured environment to maybe unstructured for sure.
and so, what did you follow early on that you were like, oh, yeah, this is going to get me success? That you were kind of like, yeah, no, not so much.
Wow, great question. I think earlier in my career, I thought if I could build something great, I'm going to get customers. People are going to want to buy it. And learned the hard way several times. A product is necessary, but it's rarely sufficient.
That's
And I think there's things like distribution and trust and relationships and timing, things like that matter as much or more. And so today where I'm going more is about thinking about like ecosystems, network effects, defensibility of what I'm trying to come up with, features that need to be in that business that can create that. And so I'm trying to look to build things now that they're not winning because they're slightly better. They're just harder to replace.
And I'm going to say this as if it's fact, but I'm curious what you think about this. They know how to tell a good story. I'm going to try to sit in my chair. I am sitting in
Yeah,
a chair and I'm going to try to stay in it because you hit something that is just such a nerve for me. And that is that I think that we have this, I don't know, misinformation, right? This notion that if we just follow the roadmap, if we buy the program that tells us how to do the thing that we want to do, build the thing, and they will come. Because the person who sold you the program has had massive success, right? And listen, you know what? It's sexy, right?
yeah,
And right? And we want it, right? We want it. And we can see it because somebody's going to give us the path. And what I'm also going to say is that social media and the access to testimonials has made it even more. Oh my God, look at this person who had success, and this person, and the next person, right? And mostly it is a false promise, right?
sure, absolutely.
Right. And it really is how they got success. So I don't mean to say that they're doing something that's immoral or unethical. I think that they're really and truly showing you the path, right? It's the executability that is the
Yes,
issue, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot when I was living in Japan about how to grow businesses. And I also, at this time, I didn't know a thing about it. And so I found a person that is also in California, Jay Abraham. You can find him at abraham.com. And he's still there today. Had a conversation with him recently. But at the time, I didn't know him. I just bought his programs. And he was that one of those experts in business growth. And so as I'm studying his things, I'm thinking, how do I get that masterful ability to go into any business in any industry and systematically find them breakthroughs on the spot? It was about 10,000 hours of study of his material and I'd buy his CDs used because they're like $5,000 for a set. And I just write down every question he asked. And I learned there's a lot of powerful questions you can ask people that can lead them to a breakthrough. And so along the way, I created software around it, and it became like profit acceleration software. Sold it to a company that developed it further, went to work with them for a while. And we could systematically help business coaches systematically find breakthroughs for their clients. And there are probably 5,000 or 6,000 coaches use that software, and I trained hundreds of them personally. That the majority, and let's call it, I'll throw a rough number out there, and I hate to do that as a doctoral researcher. I like facts, but I'm going to be subjective here. I would say 95%, at least 90% of business coaches had no idea what they're doing. They could use the software and ask questions and find breakthroughs and use the software's functions to deliver a beautiful roadmap. But when it came to actually helping a client implement solutions, they got lost in 90 days. After that, they had no idea what to do because very few of them had the experience that it takes to actually grow a business. And so
Right.
there
I
was a
mean,
lot of,
go
no,
ahead.
please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. And then if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that this is my mantra, which is you have to personalize it, right? It's got to be about the system and about you, right? And so if you're just trying to follow somebody else's roadmap, it's never going to work. Yeah, it's one of the hugest frustrations that I have. Yeah, anyways, all right. Enough said. Let me go on.
Sure.
So I think you've grown businesses, you've had a lot of success, you've been all over the world. What is one thing that people look at you on the outside and they just assume you've got all figured out, and underneath it, you are still wrestling with?
Wow. I think people assume successful leaders have certainty, especially in the business coaching consulting space, because they have to position themselves as an expert in order to build trust. But I think in reality, I make decisions with incomplete information almost every day. And the problem with AI is only amplified that. And this pace of
Mhm.
change is incredible. And so I'm constantly balancing speed with quality. And I've learned that leadership isn't all about having all the answers. It's about building a process that helps you make good decisions before perfect information exists. Yeah, and again, I talked about being narrow like a racehorse. And people think, oh, you're getting a doctorate in AI and you must know everything. I think what it's teaching me is that I'm even narrower. Sure. You have to be very narrow. You can't learn all things AI. You cannot. Anyone who says they're an expert in AI is probably just don't know what it even means because there's so many areas of AI to figure out, and we can't be an expert in everything. So if you applied it to digital marketing and say, "Oh, I'm an expert in marketing," what digital marketing? It's like, okay, what is that? Digital advertising or social media marketing? If it's social media, is it Facebook or TikTok or LinkedIn or what? You can keep narrowing, and you can't be an expert in all of marketing. It's impossible. So you can only be a relative expert. So, yeah, this is the challenge I'm facing out today for sure.
And I do think it's interesting because, again, it's like you said, to some extent, implementing AI in businesses is a race to the bottom because right now, everybody is an AI expert, right? You used to be a social media marketer. Now all of a sudden you're an AI expert in social media marketing, right? Right? And so everybody's got their, oh, you used to build apps and you used to implement systems for companies, right? Operational systems. Now all of a sudden you're doing AI automation systems,
Yeah.
right? But I do think what you're doing in terms of that higher level strategic work with CEOs is fundamental to the success of these systems, right? Really understanding for right now, what can it do? What can it not do? And in a lot of ways, I think that I don't know. What do you think? Is A going to really and truly replace people? I don't actually think that's the case, but what do you think?
I don't know anyone really knows the answer to that, but there's some trends out there at least. AI is going to replace people in many ways, or at least what they can do. For example, if I get my blood tested, I don't need to return to the doctor for her to look at the results and say, this is what it means. I can, and I did this in Madeira, I just load the results into Chat GPT and say, this is what does this mean? If I'm considering something legal, AI knows the law better than lawyers do in many cases. In many cases. So if I'm looking at a document, I don't have to take it to my lawyer and say, can you tell me if I'm safe by this? I'll run it through, again, Chat GPT is my favorite. Use it for 4 years, whatever. And it tells me, oh, yeah, this is good, but be careful about this or that.
Yeah,
Um,
although I will tell you, because I have a lot of lawyer friends, they would say to you, buyer beware, that
Absolutely.
the accuracy is often questionable. And I think just what I would say, what they would say is it doesn't know subtlety, right? It doesn't know
Sure.
nuance. So I'm going to say yes, and right. I'm going to say
Well, I'm going to
that
agree
is,
with you there too.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think like one of the trends, I think a client I had has a major energy company as their client in the US, and they're doing whatever, several $100 million a year. And if power goes out in a certain state, the phone lines get flooded. So normally they're going to have to go out and hire temp workers. They're going to come in, they're going to replace or bring in those, and they can answer the phones like crazy. But normally what happens is you're on the phone, you might wait for an average of 4 to 8 minutes. And when the power goes out in the state because of a storm, now they're waiting for an hour. And no one wants to wait for an hour to get to a rep. So instead of hiring a team of a dozen people, they bring in one agent that can answer 50 phone calls at the same time, and wait times actually go down to 30 seconds. And that agent can
Right.
solve 75% of the inquiries. The rest have to get scaled up to someone else.
Yeah.
So it's a really
Although
good use.
it is, I don't know about any of the other listeners, but I am not a fan of agents answering the phone. Now, in the use case that you are talking about, and I just need to get information about an outage or whatever, I would say that's fine. But I will tell you if, and again, I understand it. I might not be like the average use case, but I am computer literate. I have already tried to find the answer. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not calling customer service to find out what your hours are. Okay.
Right.
I get that. So if I'm calling, then I have a unique case, a different question that cannot be answered. And I will tell you, it is the bane of my existence because most of these agents are not trained. They loop, they're not trained to get you to a human quickly.
Sure. On this case, for this company, they found that 75% of phone calls were settled satisfactorily. There is, and I'm one of them because now I'm in my 60s. My wife's with me, and we're a bit slower on technology than kids today. And we don't really want to talk to an agent either. And I think there will be a little bit now, but there will be an increasing backlash where we want people to talk to. And I'm not sure how that's going to play out because things get faster all the time. My expectation, like, I will not wait on the phone for an hour again. I don't want to do that. If I have a question about something, I should get help within, let's say, if I just say, you'll be about 5 minutes or whatever, you're third in line, okay, I'll stick around. But if it's just this endless, after a bit,
Right?
I'm just gone.
But you know what? My phone now, if I'm on hold for a certain amount of time, I have an iPhone, it'll just say, do you want to put this call on hold? So I'm not going to sit there on hold like the old days with the phone up to my ear or, God should forbid, all of that horrible music playing for an
Yep.
hour. But will I put the call on hold and go about my business and have them call me back? Sure. What do I?
Sure. And that's changing technology as things go. And the thing is, with AI, if you imagine the changes that came to the world with laptops and mobile phones, we went through it, but we adapt over years. AI is compressing all of that into a
True.
very short time.
Yeah.
And I know with company CEOs I've talked to, there is a huge amount of fear in the market because the disruption is so advanced. So
Right.
imagine, like, an analogy I have is, if someone gives me a bicycle and says, you can ride the bike around, it's great. And I'm going like 3 miles an hour and the front tire is wobbly. I can be like, oh, there's a bit of a wobble here, but I'm okay. And I think that's like business today, where you've got your business, there's some systems that don't run very well. Maybe the governance of the in the business is not going great. Management's weak in one or two areas. Maybe data doesn't talk to people as it should. And there's a lot of manual checking. This is just a wobbly wheel. It's not buttoned down perfectly. But what happens is AI says, okay, we're going to go on a 30-degree slope, and you're going from 3 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour. And that wobble is now frightening. And this is what's happening with business. CEOs are often frightened and they won't admit it in public. They'll admit it privately because it is going so fast. And AI creates pressure in an organization so that everything they're doing wrong gets exposed faster. And it's
Hmm.
frightening. If you have weak management, it's going to come to light. If you have weak systems, it's going to come to light. If you have weak accountability, it's going to come to light. Who's responsible for that change? Oh my gosh, it just, who was it and who ordered this and all that? It's this pressure. And there's a pressure from competition doing things faster. And there's pressure from people going, oh, if you use this app or you get this automation, it'll solve all your problems. And so they may be bolted on, but it just increases the pressure. So that's where it comes back
Right.
to,
Go ahead. It comes back
I was going to say,
to,
this comes back to good governance of a business. So I'd say every AI project is a leadership project disguised as a technology project.
yeah,
So
I would agree with that. Right. And I think that people are dabbling in it and they're like, oh, what can we solve? Right. It's sexy and it's
yeah,
fun and, or maybe not fun, but it feels like you got to be there. But you know, the old sort of joke of, you're in the forest and a bear is chasing you. How fast do you need to run? And it's, yeah, I just need to run faster than the person I'm with. Right.
yeah.
So I think, how do you become an industry leader? And here is the other thing, is that what outcomes are you looking for? Right. And I think that's something that I come across all the time, which is we want to systematize things. Why? What are you looking for? I got to tell you, Patrick, we can bring it down to, I did a workshop yesterday for a group, and we were just talking about meetings. I was
Yeah.
like, when you have an agenda item at a meeting, does the person who is presenting know what they're even looking for from that meeting? Are they there to inform? Are they there to get input and ideas? Are they there to get a decision? What is even the purpose of the item? And oh my God, how much time are we going to devote to this in this meeting? Because if
Yeah.
we've got 20 minutes and we are now at 12 minutes in and we need a decision, we got to get there, right? And listen, you can always say, I think this is needs a little bit more discussion. Let's give this another 5 minutes. But what happens is we don't put any guardrails on any of it. And then we wonder why it's death by meeting or nothing ever gets decided, right?
Well, it's an
Sorry.
example of good management and poor management.
Well,
Just
right.
because people are managers doesn't mean that they're good managers.
Right. So let's even just take something like meeting cadence, right? And what I
Yeah.
was just talking about. So I think what's happening in today's world is that we're like, oh, we're in so many meetings. Meetings are a problem. Let's bring our AI note taker in. So we're solving from the bottom up versus
Mm.
what you've been talking about, which is strategically, what are these meetings for? What are the outcomes that we're looking for? Let's solve for that which is a leadership problem, as opposed to let's just get better notes from the meeting, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Yep.
okay, all right, we're on the same page. Love that one. Love it when that happens. All right, so what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift it's helped you kind of get where you are now?
I think it's even happened more recently, and I'm trying to get better at it. I feel like though I'm 61, my runway is a bit shorter now, and I should have learned this 30 years ago. But I'm not chasing growth anymore. And I want to go back a little bit to what you said. Like, what are we trying to get out of this? You maybe you've heard the story. Your listeners have heard the story. I'll repeat it quickly so it doesn't drag on. These, and I might say it completely wrong, but if you haven't heard it, great. If you have heard it, just pretend you didn't. So these group of businessmen go down to some Latin American place. They want to go fishing, and they see this guy sitting there by his house, where a little hut or whatever. And they say, "Can you fish?" And they go, "Yeah, I go fishing a couple hours a day, and the rest of the day, I just enjoy my work." And they say, "Will you take us out? We'll pay you." And he goes, "Okay, sure." So he takes them out fishing, and they go, "Man, you're amazing. You should advertise yourself." And he's like, "And so what would happen?" And he goes, "You could get lots of clients." And then what would happen? It was like, you could get more boats and hire more people. What would happen then? And then you could put all this money away. And it's like, okay, what would happen? And then you could retire. And he goes, and then what would happen? You could spend a couple hours every day fishing and just put your feet up. And you're like, I'm already there. So I'm starting to think, what do I really want to do at this phase of life? And how do I want to live? And so I'm starting to think things like, I want to chase leverage, not chase growth. And there's a difference to that. So instead of asking, like, how do I sell more? It could be, how do I create something that becomes valuable, more valuable every time someone uses it? And so this is bringing me to things like network effects and data advantages and switching costs and systems that improve over time. I think fast growth. I've done this before in Japan, our school. There were a lot of schools in our city that was offering English conversation. We learned how to market using Jay Abraham stuff, hiring teachers that loved people and not just cared about a paycheck, whatever. We put all of our competitors out of business. And it wasn't that we tried to, it's just that we learned how to serve people well and love them well and offer more value and offer more benefit. And people recognize that, and they all stopped going to other schools, even national chains with their big marketing dollars. They just closed their doors literally, and we had a complete monopoly. So I
Mm.
like the idea of fast growth. I think it's exciting. I think durable businesses are built on leverage, not hustle so much. And if I have to hustle anymore, I'm not interested. I was talking to someone last night or this morning. I forget when it was now. It was this morning. Sorry, it blends together a little bit. And they were talking about how they were working for JP Morgan or something as a divisional leader. And they were just sun up to sundown in meetings all day. I'm like, yeah, they made big money, but so what? Do you have time to go fishing? Do you have time to do something and go for a walk with someone special to you, or dream, or read a book? And in my doctorate, I'm like spending all my spare time just trying to get this thing done, because I still have a business to run, and I still have family to take care of or depends on me, and I still have kids that want to talk to me and all that, the great parts of life. And I'm really good about 6 hours a day. I don't want to work 10-hour days or 12-hour days. I want to offer great value about six, but there's other things to do in life, right? So that's where I'm
Yeah.
going.
Love that. All right. You know what? I think we have had a very full conversation here.
Absolutely.
And I think you brought up some really interesting points about kind of where things are going and the value that you bring. And I think this idea of really knowing what you want to have out of life is a great starting point, not ending point. It's a great starting point.
Yeah.
And so, Patrick, thank you so much. And you have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom with my guest, Patrick Bell. All of his information will be in the show notes. So please find him, because in this world, it doesn't matter where he is, you will be able to reach him.
And I'm very
And
approachable.
there you
Yeah.
go. And then I would love really for you to do two things. If you're listening to this and you enjoy it, please subscribe. That really helps us out a lot. And then the second thing I would ask is subscribe to my newsletter. It's got a lot of really good information. It comes out once a week, and there's always the opportunity to take some action because we like action. Thank you for listening. Again, go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down